This is a story that really starts in 1977, where the previous race left off.
When we were coming up to Zeilhelden in 1978, running to Portsmouth to the finish of the Whitbread Round the World race, the last thing in my mind was to do this race again. We had just been sailing about 27,000 miles through rather difficult seas. We were pleased we were going towards the finish, and we were pleased that we were going to win the race.
The name of this game is Line Honours, and having won on handicap in the last race, Connie turned to Argentine designer Herman Freyers and Dutch yacht builder Walter Huisman for the new flyer, a 76-foot maxi designed specifically to win outright in record time. The lightweight alloy hull was turned over, ready to have her lead poured into the keel and be fitted out, all within 8 weeks. It was launched on March the 16th, 1981, just 12 months after the keel had been laid. Prince Bernhard, who played a leading role in persuading Connie to enter the race a second time, was among the well-wishers on that cold, wet afternoon, taking a keen interest in the boat and her crew. The deep keel of this sleek, new maxi was too big for the Dutch canals, and she was taken by barge the 10 miles from Vollenhove to the IJsselmeer, ready to have her mast stepped. Built from the latest lightweight materials, this Freyers design weighed only 2 tons more than her predecessor, despite being 11 feet longer. Connie's worst fear was of being dismasted. For if the mast were to break during the Whitbread race, all chance of achieving his goal would be irretrievably lost. His earlier yacht had been a 2-masted ketch, but this greyhound was having only one finely tuned spar, so there was no room for error, a point Connie was only too well aware of. The first trials of this Dutch yacht were held off Den Helder, where her builder, Walter Huisman, understandably took a close interest in her performance. During the previous round-the-world race, head sails had all been hanged to the forestay during the 2 heavy-weather Southern Ocean legs. But this time the crew were to rely on the more efficient headfoil luff groove system throughout the 27,000-mile marathon. The light head sails were another significant change. Apart from being much larger than on the earlier flyer, they were now made with a hard-finish mylar laminate on one side, making them both stronger and lighter than the soft woven cloth used before. Four months before the start of the round-the-world race from Portsmouth, Connie and his team set out on exhaustive trials. First to Portugal, then to America and back, to thoroughly test both yacht and crew. In all, a distance of more than 10,000 miles. Normally, a boat of this size would be sailed with a crew of 20 or more, but during these trials, Connie had to find out if Flyer could be sailed just as efficiently with only 6 to a watch.
The experience from the last race was, of course, very important. Not only the racing itself, but also the working up period. We learned how to get the boat together, how to get the crew together. And as we expected, this Whitbread was going to be much more competitive than the last one. It was, of course, very important to do everything as good as possible. We were going to enter with a bigger boat, so we knew that the problems would be multiplied. And that is why I really decided on a very extensive trial plan.
Their first task was to tune the rig, tightening the leeward shrouds at deck level. Then at each spreader terminal, until all the rigging took on equal strain. All part of the fine-tuning that must go into a modern maxi like Flyer. This part of the first trial run, through the Bay of Biscay down to Portugal, was used to check the custom-built deck equipment, blocks, winches and purpose-made Kevlar ropes, as well as to identify and iron out all the unforeseen problems to ensure the best performance from this new design. This was a first taste of what could be expected in the Southern Ocean, where newcomers find that the driving winds and the intense concentration needed to keep the yacht on a steady course can leave them exhausted after 20 minutes wrestling with the helm. A balanced high-protein diet is essential if the crew are to remain fit and well in these extreme conditions. And it was left to French chef Patrick Antelme to turn the deep-frozen meat and the freeze-dried fruit and vegetables carried on each leg into the most appetizing meals for skipper and crew. After some impressive runs over several stormy days, Connie finally sighted Cape St. Vincent. And, beyond that, Villa Moura Marina in the Algarve, Connie's home in Portugal. Here, Flyer's crew take time off to match race against each other in 2 J24s, one of which is also named Flyer.
The first part of the trial period, from England to Portugal and Portugal to the United States, I kept it free and easy. It was more for me to see how the boat would perform and how the boys were performing. And I wanted to see if they were compatible, if they could work together. We did all kinds of races amongst the boys, like push-ups, like swimming over the side, like jumping off the spreader, to see who were the daredevils and who were the ones who were a bit more careful. I kept it all very loose, and they could do more or less as they liked. For me to learn what kind of boys they were, how I had to work them, how I would get them into a good team. And that is why the first part of the trip was more a leisure and a pleasure trip.
After spending a week at the Hood's Loft in Marblehead, checking Flyer's sails, a crew were given their first real test, a 463-mile race from Annapolis to Newport. Everyone was excited to see how she would perform against other yachts, especially the new Kealoha, which had won the Maxi World Championship the previous year. It was an inconspicuous start, delayed for more than an hour for lack of wind, And when the race did finally get underway, Kealoha got boxed in by other yachts, and Flyer, enjoying clearer air, soon moved into an impressive lead that she held until nightfall. The wind finally filled in 3 days later, and by then no one knew who was in the lead as Flyer shy-reached towards the Newport finish line. Later, when darkness fell, Flyer was to be told she was leading the race. But along with that good news came fog. Fog and near disaster.
We took down the spinnaker because we were doing about 10, 11 knots, which was too much in this heavy, foggy weather. We were first ship anyhow, so we were assured of line honors. Somehow we got lost and we hit the rocks. The bang was terrific. One of the boys went over the side and myself was thrown over the wheel. When we hit, I thought we were losing the whole keel, and we also scraped the scack over the rocks, and you couldn't see anything on the scack or the rudder at all. So it just proved that the boat was really very strong, and that, of course, gave us a lot of confidence. The next day, we went to see where we had hit the rocks. We really appreciated how lucky we had been that we hadn't lost the boat there and then. And only then we realized that Flyer was really a very lucky boat.
The record attempt from Ambrose Light to the Lizard was also dogged by light airs, and the crew waited off New York for 3 days before they finally got a good breeze for the 3,000-mile stretch. In the event, it was another incident-packed voyage that carried a number of valuable lessons.
About 3 or 4 days out, we hit a whale during the night, but we didn't do any damage, and that, of course, was very pleasing.
Not only did they hit a whale, they also experienced their first surf and a freak wave.
To me, it looked like a big hole, and I steered for it, and that was really the first surf we had with the boat, where we must have hit a speed of 30 to 35 knots. At the moment, we were scared of being pitched boat, and it got the boys on deck who were down below, and everybody started yelling because it was such a fantastic experience. The surfing was unbelievable. There was a big rooster tail behind us. It was an experience I'd never had before, but it was unbelievable and never to be forgotten. In the end, we ran out of wind completely. It was a pity, but we just knew we couldn't make it. But although the challenge of breaking the record wasn't fulfilled, it gave me a very good chance to see which of the crew would match the challenge and which would not.
The Seahorse Maxi Series of cows. Connie decided to enter Flyer in this 5-race series around the buoys not to win, but rather to measure Flyer's speed and sharpen teamwork against the top Maxis, including her largest Whitbread rival, the 80-foot FCF Challenger. This series, just 1 month before the Whitbread start, also tested Flyer against other Whitbread competitors, such as the smaller red Spanish yacht Licor 43, which proved no match for the other Maxis. Much better prepared was the New Zealand yacht Saramco, designed by Bruce Farr, which was to prove the greatest threat to Connie van Rietschoten's ambitions. On Flyer, Ted Hood, responsible for all her sails, steered throughout the 5-race series, winning flyer many a tactical advantage. Peter Blake, Sir Ramco's professional skipper, was as keen as Flyers designer Herman Flares, sitting here between Connie and builder Walter Huisman, to see how the Dutch yacht performed against top-class competition.